Well, hi there. My name is Ray Majeski, and I'm the Harbormaster of Sitka, Alaska. Today is the 7th of May, 2008, and today is the first day of the cruise ship season for our summer. And I wound up bumping into these wonderful people who have put me on camera in front of you. Behind me is Crescent Harbor, which is one of our 5 harbors in Sitka. The Sitka harbor system consists of Crescent Harbor, Sealing Cove Harbor, A&B Harbor, Thompson Harbor, and Eliason Harbor. It is the largest small boat harbor system in the state of Alaska, and I have had the privilege and pleasure of being the harbor master for the past 10 years. Now, I'm a Christian, and I didn't wind up with this job by accident. I am totally convinced in my mind and in my heart that the good Lord found this job for me. I was a police officer prior to receiving this position. And I had been a police officer for the Sitka Police Department. I had been a sergeant prior to that, left the police department, came back to the police department after 4 years of charter fishing, and became a jailer in a police department where I was once a supervisor. I worked my way back to patrol status and took the sergeant's exam, and even though I came in number 1 on the exam, I was not promoted to sergeant. And it was more of a financial thing. Sergeants make more money than patrolmen. And at the time, my wife and I were in a lot of financial distress. And about a month after this happened, when I thought I'd wind up the oldest patrolman in Sitka's history, the good Lord opened up a position for me. The harbor master for this city turned in his resignation, and my wife and the chief of police at the time asked me to put in for this job. I had never thought about being a harbor master, didn't know what it was to be a harbor master, and now I are one. And my wife, she doesn't have to call me harbor master like everybody else. I let her call me master, so she can drop the harbor part. But I have 8 employees working for me, and as I said earlier, this is the largest small boat harbor system in the state of Alaska. During the summer months, I'm also responsible not only for the administration of the harbors, but I'm also responsible for homeland security, upland security for the cruise ship passengers when they come in. And that's how I found these people today, and that's how they found me. The good Lord just sort of stuck us together. I've been a Christian since 1981. I accepted the Lord at that time when I was attending a little Southern Baptist church in Grangeville, Idaho. And I had a history of jumping churches, and I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find the Lord. I didn't know what I was doing. And these people in this wonderful little church kept inviting me and inviting my wife and I to church. And it was the Easter season. And they kept inviting me, and having been born in the Catholic faith, I really felt an urgency to go to church at Easter time. And what happened is my wife says, well, where are we going to go to church for Easter? And I says, you know, the people in this little church, Mountain Shadows Baptist Church in Grangeville, Idaho, I said, they keep inviting us, so let's go to church there. Well, that was the first day of a revival that was going on in that church. That Easter Sunday at Mountain Shadows Baptist Church in Grangeville, Idaho, was the first day of a revival. An evangelist named E.C. Cron, who had come up from Texas, had started the revival, and that was the first day when my wife and I went to church. Well, at the time I was driving a truck. I had left law enforcement for a short time and was driving a long-haul truck. And I was away from home a lot. And I was able to hear the first sermon of that revival, and I was home on Wednesday of that week to hear another sermon during that revival. And the funny thing is that my wife and I both wanted to accept the Lord at the Wednesday night service, but neither one of us wanted to influence the other. So as a result, neither of us went forward. Well, the good Lord solved that problem. The following Sunday, the last day of the revival, I went to church alone because my wife had to work. And the invitation came forth at the end of the service, and I left the pew and I stepped forward and accepted Christ. That evening, at the evening service, I brought my wife. And she knew that I had accepted Christ when she saw my face after I had left church at the morning service and saw her at work. That evening, she stepped forward and accepted Christ. Our daughter, Caprice, had accepted Christ a couple of months before, and what we didn't realize is that once she did that she got that whole church praying for my wife and myself, put us on the hit list, which we called, and as a result, the Lord's grace and guidance led us to Him on that week of revival. So we've been born-again Christians ever since then. And even though that's happened to us, the circuitous path that I've led in my Christian life didn't end. I've jumped to other churches and I've gone other places and done other things. But I went back into law enforcement, and eventually we moved from Idaho up here to Sitka, Alaska, where I finished my career in law enforcement and wound up being given this position as Harbormaster by the good Lord. He literally made this job for me, and I think in some respects made me for this job. I get to meet people from all over the world during the summer when they step off of cruise ships. And I hope that the way I conduct myself as a supervisor and as the Harbormaster of Sitka is conducive to the way people would expect a Christian man to act. I try to always make all the decisions that I make as Harbormaster based not only upon what I'm supposed to be doing as a Harbormaster, but what I'm supposed to be doing as a Christian man who happens to be a Harbormaster. I've been given many, many privileges since I received this job. I joined an organization known as the Pacific Coast Congress of Harbormasters, which is a professional organization that takes care of people in my career field, the Harbormaster business, the port manager business, and California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and Alaska. And I was given the privilege a year ago of becoming president of that organization, the first Alaska Harbormaster to ever rise to that position. Now I know that not always things go the way you want them to go. This was not the way I had planned my life. I thought that I would end my life as a police officer, hopefully in police administration, but that isn't where the good Lord wanted me. He put me here, and He put me here for a reason. And I always hope and pray that the way I conduct myself is an example, not only to the people around me that are members of the public, but to the people who work under my supervision, so that they know that a Christian man is in the position of Harbormaster, and that this is a Christian man that is acting the way the good Lord would want him to act. My life has to be an example for my family, an example to my friends, an example to everyone around me. And I pray that for the most part, it really is. I'm a work in progress, just like my harbor system is a work in progress. We do everything that we can to maintain the harbor system and keep everything floating and keep the customers happy. So it's a work in progress. So am I. I'm not perfect, haven't even got close yet. And although I jokingly call myself St. Raymond of Sitka, no one may ever give me that title other than myself. So I just really think that this is the perfect job for me. I'm happy at it. I have another year and a half before I retire, and then who knows what the good Lord is going to plan for me then. I just really love what I do, and I love the fact that I get to meet all of these people from all over the world coming to visit us here in Sitka. So this is your opportunity. If you want to come and meet me, come on up to Sitka. Take a cruise on any of these cruise lines that come up here, And come on in and see our beautiful town. It has wonderful history. We're down in Crescent Harbor right now, and Crescent Harbor is one of the larger of the 5 harbors of Sitka. And as you can see by some of the poles that are sticking up, we have a large amount of commercial fishing vessels that are based here in Sitka. In the entire harbor system, I would say roughly 50% of the harbor system is commercial fishing vessels. And these are people that, some of them make their living solely by commercial fishing, some of them do it part-time. There was a gentleman that just passed us that said hello, and he works for the city, but he does some part-time fishing during the summer months. We do have some nice looking yachts in the harbor system. This is probably one of the nicer ones, and it's called the Gloria Rose, and she's an 83-footer, and if I had something like that, I'd probably live on it. It's bigger than my house, but it's a gorgeous boat inside and out, and actually that boat is well over 20 years old. They really keep it up nicely. It came up here from Bellevue, Washington, from what I understand, a few years ago, and one of our local businessmen owned that yacht. The duties that I perform as Harbormaster, obviously I have to administrate the 5 harbors, and I'm responsible for assigning stalls. I'm also responsible for transient traffic, people that travel here from other parts of the country, and to put them in stalls temporarily during the summer months. They come up here, go fishing. We don't get much transient traffic during the off-season, September through March, and the only time we see some transient traffic in March is mainly toward the end of March, when we have the herring fishery. And the herring fishery is our harbinger of spring, and that is an extremely busy time of the year. This year I think they took 15,000 tons of herring from the water for the herring fishery. It's a money crop, and it makes money for the harbor system, and it makes money for the commercial fleet that fishes for the herring. There was one boat this past year that made one set with his net and caught 1,500 tons of herring. And that 1,500 tons was valued at almost $1 million in one set. So it's very much a money fishery. If we walk down the docks here, this area here, most of these boats are charter fishing boats. We call this, it's a load zone, it's a temporary moorage. People are only supposed to be in here for an hour and then out. And this time of the year, the charter boats use this a lot to drop off their passengers, to pick them up and take them out fishing. As we go down the docks, part of the duties that I have is to supervise the maintenance of the docks. This harbor is well over 30 years old, and she's still functioning pretty good. How you doing, Brownie?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How
Good.
are you doing?
Good. Hanging in there, man.
Many fish coming in? It's pretty skimpy right now, isn't it?
We have like 2 or 3.
Oh,
So,
well, that's better than zero. Yeah, that's right. This is the beginning of our king salmon season, and a lot of sport fishermen come up from the lower 48 states to tempt fate and try and catch themselves a king salmon. Unfortunately, this year they've cut the quota a bit. They can catch 1 per day, and they can take 3 out of the state. And then after July the 15th, they're not going to be able to take anything out unless it's 48 inches or longer. And I haven't caught a king salmon 48 inches or longer in a long time. So yeah. So I think after July the 15th, you're not going to see a whole lot of fish leaving Sitka, at least in the king salmon version. There are some vessels out fishing right now. They're fishing for hatchery king salmon. The general king salmon season for the commercial fishery doesn't open up until July 1. So we still have the better part of 2 months to go before they start fishing for the king salmon. Here's one of our charter boats coming in, a fellow by the name of Keith Greba and a fellow Christian. Keith Grebe has been charter fishing since 1987, former Coast Guardsman, and he's also a very well-known and accomplished artist, especially here in Southeast Alaska. Any luck, Keith? Nothing, huh? You lost one. Well, now everyone can hit the one that lost it, right? Who lost that fish? Oh. As I said earlier, some of the slips are empty right now. Some of the boats are out fishing for these hatchery king salmon that do come in a little earlier than the wild kings. And but right now it's still pretty early. This is very early in the season, and it seems like pickings are pretty slim right now. So with the price of fuel the way it is and everything else, these guys are spending a lot of money to catch very few fish, and I pray that it'll pick up for them, because these guys are spending a lot of money on diesel. There's more than 200 and some odd boats in this harbor, well, closer to 250 vessels that are tied to this harbor. And this particular harbor, Crescent Harbor, was named because of the crescent shape of the shoreline that existed here before they built the harbor. And Alexander Baranov, who was the governor of Russian America 200 years ago, used to walk along the perimeter of what we now know as Crescent Harbor, and he'd go down there, and there's a big flat rock, a couple of ramps down from here that he'd sit on, and we assume he probably thought about home in Russia when he was there, because this is a pretty wet area. If you're not used to rain, this can dampen your spirits very greatly. We get about 90 to 110 inches of rain per year, and some years we get a little bit more than that. Across the street from this harbor is the Russian bishop's house, that yellow building with a reddish or orangish roof, and that was the residence of the Russian bishop in America 200 years ago. It is now run by the National Park Service. Across the street we have St. Gregory's Catholic Church, we have St. Peter's Episcopal Church, and there are more churches in Sitka than there are bars. So that's a good thing. Well, I'm sorry you lost your fish. How long did you get to play with it?
No, I think the lines went out. The fish must have hit, because the line was, the pole was up, and then that was...
She missed the fish.
I missed the fish. I didn't even know I was looking at a fish.
So there you go. Well, better luck next time. Take care. This is a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to raise your family. We are on an island. There's no way to drive anywhere else. We have roughly 22.2 miles of paved roadway in Sitka. And so if someone were to steal your car, I guess you'd see it, several times a day. You could drive 100 miles, but you'll see everything 5 times. So you have to pick and choose what you want to do, I guess. We're not bored. I guess maybe we get lonely sometimes, and that's why we enjoy the summer months when people come to visit us, The national park is at the end of the harbor. You see the stand of trees, and the Sitka National Park is there. And people refer to it as Totem Park, and it has a lot to do with the native history. Earlier you had, I may have explained that there are 2 histories that go on here. There's the Russian and American history, which is 200 years old to the present. You have the Tlingit history, which goes back thousands of years. And the Tlingit people, the native tribe in this area, have lived here for the better part of those 10,000 years after the glaciers left this area. And I've had the great privilege, one of the greatest privileges of my life, of being adopted by the local native tribe. My native name is Shaksani Ish, which means father of women, and I was adopted almost 4.5 years ago. They must have had a minority quota. They needed a Polak in the family. So here I am. I call myself a Polingit. I'm Polish Klingit now. My step-grandmother was Iroquois Indian, and I know that where she is right now, she would be very proud that I was adopted by the local tribe, which I do consider a great honor. About 25% of our community is Tlingit, and many of our commercial fishermen community. And of course, they've fished these waters for a lot longer than anybody else. We had snow yesterday up in the mountains around us, and if you take a picture, a gander at the mountain over here to the northeast, that's called Gavin Hill. And where you see the clouds right now, the bottom of the clouds, that's how low the snow line was on the mountain yesterday. And fortunately enough, it melted off of those trees and went back up where it belongs in the higher elevations. We're proud of our schools, we're proud of our churches, we're proud of the family nature of this community. And there is so much richness here in culture to keep us busy for an entire year. The summer months get a little hectic. This year we'll have roughly 280,000 people visit Sitka on cruise ships. Not as much as Juneau, which will have the better part of 1 million people visit.
Sensei, there?
Sorry about that, my radio went off for you. But 250 to 280,000, 300,000 people is about all we can handle in this little small community. No commercial dock, so the big ships cannot tie to a dock, they must anchor out, and they tender the people into the shoreline for their trips around Sitka. And they go on bus tours, they go on whale watching tours, some of them go kayaking, and there are people all over the town. At the end of the day, they slowly filter back to the tenders, back out to the ship, and the ships normally leave somewhere between 4 and 6 o'clock each evening. So we have our evenings to ourselves here in Sitka, and for the most part, in the past years, we've even had our weekends off. This year, Sundays, we'll always have a cruise ship in. So we'll have cruise ships into Sitka 6 out of 7 days a week. That'll keep me a little busier than I care to be, because there are fish to be caught, and if I don't go out fishing on the weekends, I don't get to catch them. So I'll make arrangements to kill some of them, because there are empty spaces in my freezer. So this, how you doing?
Oh, well, I don't know.
So slim pickings again, huh?
Well, she had one ice we caught. As soon as we got there, you know, you set your gear, I set the first pole.
Right.
And I'm looking back and it's going, she's just looking at it. I go, that's a fish.
This is a Christian broadcast that'll be broadcast on the Hallmark channel.
TBCN, Trinity Broadcast? No, which one? Hallmark. Hallmark. Oh, is that the ones that make the cards?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I even got your name on there.
Here, have a piece of smoked salmon. Here, give it to them. That's smoked king salmon. Take that with you.
I even told them about you.
You did?
Yeah.
All right.
How ornery you are.
Oh, that's okay. I've been here too long.
There's a lot of salt in those crevices, I'll tell you.
Well, you got a few more years than I do. Keep up with you. So where's home for you guys? Oh, you're now allowed to talk? Oh, I guess you're being filmed, man.
Yeah, they're from down south.
Oh.
That lower 48. Yeah.
All right, have fun.
Today we have the Holland America ship Oosterdam in Sitka. And the tenders from the Oosterdam bring the people from the ship that's anchored just beyond the breakwater, bring them into this tendering facility that we have across the way. And then they'll take them back. During the summer months, we average approximately 22,000 tender trips between the ships and the facility here at Crescent Harbor, and I have another facility over at the O'Connell Bridge. And that's what will bring our 280,000 people to town. Also from this facility we have tours, whale watching tours that will pick up people at that facility and then take them out whale watching. There's also another boat that will take them on it's sort of like a glass bottom boat. And that glass bottom boat will go through the harbor system with the hope that they'll get to see some fish and maybe an octopus or two and other little creatures that are swimming around the system here. The waters here are very, very clean, they're very pristine, and there's a lot of stuff to see. And believe it or not, there's actually one company here that takes you snorkeling. And they put you in dry suits. It's actually warmer to go snorkeling than it is to walk downtown sometimes. And you wouldn't believe that, but it is. And everyone that I've spoken to regarding that little snorkeling outfit just loves it. And they get to see all sorts of stuff. The water is very, very clear. So that's pretty much a tour of this area, Crescent Harbor and the tendering facility, and just an oversight of the Sitka Harbor system. I hope you all have an opportunity to come and visit us sometime. Come on up in a cruise ship. If you don't want to do that, drive the Alaska Highway and take the Alaska Ferry. Come to Sitka and visit us.